Hello and welcome back to the podcast, That's Showbiz, with your host, Hannah Ranko. I hope you all are having a great Monday. I am sick, boo-hoo, but I want to just jump right into this episode because I have an amazing guest here to talk with us today about all things dance education, training, everything. So without further ado, let's dive right into this week's episode.
Hello, everyone. Today I have an awesome guest here today, Ashlee Rapoza. And I'm going to have Ashlee just start off by introducing herself, telling us who she is, what she does, and what she is about.
Hi, I'm Ashlee Rapoza. I'm a dance educator based out of Rhode Island. A little bit about me. Right now, I currently teach at a performing arts high school in Providence called Trinity Academy for the Performing Arts. I also teach at 4 dance studios. 2 of them are competitive, and then 2 of them are just purely performance-based. I met Hannah at Dean. I think she was a sophomore when I was a junior. I graduated in December 2018. And then I recently graduated from NYU with my master's in dance ed with a focus in higher education and administration. And in September, I'm going back to get my PhD in education from URI.
So, the first question I have is just talking about your education. Last time we talked, I know you mentioned the differences between your BA program and your MA program. And I was just wondering if you could tell us the differences between those two and also talk a little bit more about your PhD program.
Yeah, so the BA program at Dean was really, I felt like it was a really performance based or like more focused on establishing like set technique. So, like, for example, we took like just strictly jazz, contemporary, tap, modern classes instead of like actual pedagogy classes. At NYU, I would take like a modern class, but it was a modern pedagogy class. So we would learn like a little gram combination, and then we would sit and we would chat about it and kind of like dissect like how we would teach that at like a studio or in like a performing arts high school setting type of thing. It was more like talking about how we can teach things, talking about pedagogical practice and things of that nature, as opposed to just like you're in a class and you're just dancing type of thing, if that makes sense. It was also more individualized. So like we would have research projects and it would be a very loose topic, and then we would kind of like go out on our own and like research things that interest us, which actually is very similar to the PhD program I'm going into. I was originally trying to go into a PhD in dance program, and then I kind of realized that I have 2 degrees in dance already. I don't really need a third, so I wanted to be a little bit more versatile. And I applied for strictly education PhDs because when you go to get your PhD, you kind of pick a thesis or like a focus statement, and you mold your program around that. So I know we're going to kind of talk about it a little bit later, but my focus for my master's program was researching the differences between higher ed and competition dance. And that's going to be my focus for my PhD, is kind of like delving deeper into that. So I feel like my BA program was more focused on like training, and then my master's and my PhD is more focused on like the educational aspect of it.
Going off of that, what are some teaching philosophies that you've developed over the years during your education that you utilize in the classroom?
I'm a big proponent of culturally relevant pedagogy, which is a topic that I learned about first when I was reading Naima McCarthy Brown's work, which is basically like molding your lessons around what your students are interested in and trying to keep them engaged. I was teaching in a K through 5 school for a while, from September to I left in February. So I was teaching kindergarten through 5th grade dance, and I kind of learned really quickly that I needed to kind of tie in things that they liked in order to keep them engaged. And I started doing that, and I noticed a big difference in like limiting behavioral issues in my classroom because they were focused, because it was actually like stuff they wanted to learn about. But even in a studio setting too, like I try to really build relationships with my students, obviously keeping that teacher-student boundary, but like get to know what they're interested in, or like even like songs that they want to dance to and stuff like that, because it keeps them more, just keeps like a better classroom environment, but also like the students respect you a little bit more and they want to learn from you instead of being like, I want to do what I want to do and kind of like sucks to suck, you know? I feel like that was a big reason why I went back to school, was because I noticed like a lapse in like the connection between me and my students. And I was like, I feel like I'm not being a good teacher and I need to figure out like how I can be more accessible to my students, especially because like social media nowadays is so big. Kids can kind of like have whatever they want at their fingertips. So like you really need to constantly keep them engaged or they're going to lose it. That's like my big philosophy. And also just like limiting the authoritative practice. I grew up as a competition kid and it was very kind of like you don't talk, you just sit there in class and like you don't really have a brain. You just kind of learn choreo and you don't actually get to think for yourself. So where like my students, most of the time I'll give them choreo, but I'll be like, make it your own. I want to see like how you dance. I don't care about like how I dance, type of thing like that. Even for my competitive kids, because I feel like that's where you get the educational aspect of dance instead of just like training to train. I want them to like know how to like be innovative and creative and problem solve and think for themselves. They don't need to be robots.
I love that. Do you notice a certain age group that your teaching methods are most effective with?
Yeah, I feel like it's most effective with older students. I've always kind of had like a connection with like the 15 and up kind of age bracket. And I think a lot of it is because I had some medical issues when I was that age. So I was homeschooled. So developmentally, I'm kind of like socially a little bit farther back. So I find it easier to connect with those types of kids for some reason. I also think that a lot of it is because I do try to like keep up with the times a little bit. I'm getting older. I'm 27, so I'm getting a little bit disconnected. But in terms of like social media, I'm pretty active on TikTok and stuff. So I'm able to like see what the kids are interested in. Also, I feel like that age group was the time when like a lot of my mental health issues started to go on too. And I noticed that with my kids. So connecting with them and that type of thing, checking in with them is a lot easier because they are able to like express how they feel instead of like trying to check in with a 5-year-old like, why are you sad today? They're going to be like, oh, my mommy didn't get me a donut. And I'm like, I can't really connect with that, but the older kids you can. I've always wanted to teach either higher ed or like 15 to 18 type of age.
And I know for me, I find it really hard when I'm teaching high schoolers the teacher student boundaries because I'm younger. Sometimes I feel like that might contribute to it being harder for them to respect that. What are some of your strategies for creating that and also creating a very inclusive classroom?
Yeah, it is difficult and I wish it was something that I was like 100% good at. That's definitely something that I'm working on because I do like kind of have like that almost like friend kind of vibe, but I think the best you can do is like when you do actually need to get strict with them or like get down to business, like you don't come at it in like a aggressive type of way. You're like hey guys, like we can hang out now, but like we have something we have to do and that's our main focus. And if you can't handle that, then like I'm either going to dock your grade because that is my responsibility or like I'm going to take you out of this part. And if you're upset about it, we can talk about it after. I had a student who was upset with me once and I felt bad because I'm also a people pleaser, but she was upset because I didn't put her in a part because she was absent, but then I put another kid in a part even though they were absent. And I could tell she was upset. And I think that it made it a little bit worse because we were like closer, but I had that boundary. Like, I'm the teacher. I'm sorry. Like, you weren't here. I don't know what to tell you. We'll talk about it after class if you're upset. And then I kind of just explained where I was coming from. Because if you come at it from like a aggressive type of way, then they're going to immediately shut down. But if you're too nice about it, they're just not going to take you seriously.
Yeah, it's almost like if you just tell them because I said so, they're not going to really understand. But if you break down your reasoning, they're probably more inclined to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, exactly. I think the biggest thing from grad school that I learned is like humanizing yourself as a teacher. A lot of kids see a teacher as like not an actual person. They're just like a robot that like stands in front of the classroom or a studio or whatever. I'm like totally open with my students. If I'm like having a bad mental health day, I'll be like, I am not good today. It's nothing you guys did. I just want to make that clear to them. Or like if I have choreographer's block, I had to do that because it's been recital season has been awful. I'm like, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what to do. I'm having a choreographer's block. If you guys want to help me, go for it. If not, we're just going to clean because like, I don't know, just humanizing yourself and like being like open and honest with your students, but not to a point where like they start knowing too much personal information. Like, I'll never talk about like family stuff, really, stuff like that, unless it's like necessary, you know?
Yeah, I think that's makes a lot of sense. I know you briefly mentioned this. I also grew up with traditional dance etiquette rules in the classroom, very strict ballet teachers, all of that. I was just wondering where you find balance between that and how you currently teach. Are there some overlaps? Are there some things you're letting go of?
Yeah, the biggest thing I'm letting go of is using exercise as a punishment. I don't know if that makes sense, but I grew up in a competitive dance environment, and a lot of times, like, if we were like acting a fool, they'd be like, "Go do 10 push-ups" or whatever, and then you'd see the push-ups as like something negative. And I'm definitely getting rid of that. I don't use that anymore at all. I try to use as little negative behavioral reinforcements as possible. I was at a school where like they had like a clip stick, and like if a kid acted up, you would like be like, so and so, I'm moving your clip down, and you're like singling them out in front of the entire class. And I think that's terrible. And at the time I was like, I'm using it because the school's telling me to. And then now that I look back, I'm not at that school anymore. I'm like, that's awful. Like, we're literally just like pointing out a kid and like calling them a bad kid or whatever in front of the class. So I'm getting rid of that. That was actually pretty prevalent in like my dance training too when I was growing up. Like, a teacher would just like straight up yell at you in front of everybody else. I will not single a kid out for like any sort of behavior or anything like that. I even struggle sometimes like giving corrections to kids individually, which I think is something that I need to work on. I'm a little bit sensitive to like even like spacing dances, like putting kids in the back if they're not like too strong in the dance, because I was like that kid that would get put in the back and then I would be sad about it. So it's something I'm working on too, is like not being overly sensitive to like how I think my students would feel.
I also find it a very hard balance, yeah, between what you just said.
Yeah, like being too nice. I don't know. I feel like you're like an empath too. So like, I don't know, if like a kid's going across the floor, I'll just scream, point your feet, instead of like being like, so and so, point your feet, blah blah blah. Because I'm like, I don't want them to go cry in the car after. Like, I don't know. Like, I want them to feel bad. But I need to be a little bit better about that. I've had my students literally be like, it's fine. Put me in the back. Like, you're good. Like, I think that's the best thing about older kids is they'll just be like, I don't like, you're like, just stop being ridiculous, like go, like whatever, I don't know, they'll give it to you straight.
Yeah. What is your opinion on physical corrections and consent with that?
I think you should get consent every single time you touch a student. Just because a kid gave you consent one time doesn't mean that they consent every time. I don't like being touched really at all. That's a thing that everybody at Dean knew. I'm not a hugger. I don't like it. The worst part about going to ballet, I love Jill Silverman more than anything. I have Dance Free Smile Love It tattooed on my arm. But I hated when she would come over and like grab me and like fix me, because I don't like people touching me. And I get like a lot of kids are like that now too. Like, especially, I don't know, like you don't know if they're like neurotypical or like neurodivergent or whatever. Like they might have, it might be a trigger for them. So always, always, always consent. Ask if they can be touched, because sometimes they might say no, and that's okay. Like, you need to know what other methods you can do to show or to like fix a kid's positioning. I try to like demonstrate on my own body as much as I can if they don't want to be touched.
I feel like too, something that I've been trying to be aware of is to approaching someone as I'm saying, can I touch you, is still not fully asking for consent, because it's like you're putting that kid in a situation where someone's already approaching you. That's just something I've been trying to be more aware of.
Yeah, especially nowadays with everything that's been going on in the dance industry. Like, I don't know if people are familiar with what happened with Break the Floor, Jump Dance Convention, Nuvo, all of those, and like the grooming and the sexual misconduct within those like teachers at that convention. Like, everybody just needs to be way more aware. The things they do might be detrimental to a student's mental health or like just like their overall developmental pattern.
Yeah, I think that's why it's even more important to ask your students for consent every time, because you're setting the expectation and the understanding of what consent is to your student.
Yeah, they're not required to like have you touch them. Like, that's not like something that like you should be going into dance class worried about. I definitely agree with that. Setting boundaries, teaching them how to set boundaries.
Moving a little bit away from that. I was just curious about your powerlifting and how that exists in relationship to your dancing and all of that, if it even doesn't have to relate at all. Outside of dancing, we can have a life.
No, it does. It actually, it started because after Dean, I had to graduate a semester early because of financial issues, and I was able to squeeze everything into my last semester. And then I traveled to LA and I did a dance convention there with Erica Sobel and people from Netherlands Dance Theater. And it was a great experience, but I started to kind of I don't know, eat a lot of food. I was drinking a 6-pack of beer every night. I wasn't training really. I was just kind of losing my motivation to move. And then I went to a dance convention in Denver with my best friend at the time, Tori, shout out. And her company was doing the dance convention, and I was so out of shape that it was embarrassing to me. And I was like, this is really bad. If I ever want to do anything with dance, I can't be this way. I can't be drinking a 6-pack of beer every night. I can't be getting 2 quesadillas and 2 Doritos Locos Tacos from Taco Bell every night. That's so bad. So my boyfriend and I started going to the gym. We went to Planet Fitness, and then COVID shut everything down. And I was like, I'm gonna get my life together. So I cut out alcohol. I cut out fast food. We were just kind of I don't know, just on a cut. And it was the first time I was actually healthy about a weight cut, because I've had some issues with restrictive eating and stuff before. And this is the first time that I've actually been pretty healthy about it. And then when the gyms reopened, we got a coach. His name's Nick. He was awesome at at LA Fitness. And we got into lifting. And he was like, you're pretty strong. You should do powerlifting. And I was like, I don't think I'm strong enough for that, whatever. And then I did my first meet and I got third, and I kind of have had the bug since then. For people who don't know, powerlifting is a strength sport. You compete in a weight class, and you have 3 attempts to squat, 3 attempts to bench, 3 attempts to deadlift. And then you have a total, and then there's a body weight percentage score too. But there's definitely been a large correlation with lifting and dance. I feel like I'm in the best shape that I have ever been now, and I'm 27, than when I was even when I was at Dean. And I think technically I was the best I was at Dean, but physically I was not in good shape at all. My muscle mass was just not where it needed to be. I was having back pain all the time. It just was not good. And actually, since I started lifting, for the most part, I haven't really had as bad back issues as I had before. I can do crazier jumps than I've ever been able to do. I got my 540 the other day, which was pretty cool. I don't know. It's something that people look over a lot. They just see conditioning and they think it's body weight exercises. But in actuality, you do need to be progressive overloading or using weights to get stronger. And now the dance industry, you look at any competitive dance and it's full of acro and whatever. And some people hate it. I think it's pretty cool, honestly, but to each their own, it's whatever. You need to be physically strong to do that, and the only way to get your body in that shape is by using weights. And I also feel too, the thing with powerlifting, I was thinking about this on my drive to the gym, you have to be properly fueling your body, or you just you won't recover, you can get injured, you're just not gonna really make any gains, which I think a lot of dancers, at least I know for a fact because of my research in this topic, have negative relationships with nutrition, or just their overall body perception, body dysmorphia, stuff like that, where when you're lifting weights, you have to be eating at maintenance or in a calorie surplus, or it's just not going to work for you. So it hasn't 100% healed my relationship with that type of stuff, but I'm more consistently eating to fuel my body, as opposed to just this kind of binge restrictive kind of balance. I've never really talked about that before, but yeah, as a long thing, I love powerlifting. I think it's great for dancers. It does make you a little stiff, which sucks, but if you stretch and you warm up properly, you should be golden.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, I'm not nearly as into that type of stuff as you, but I do go to the gym and lift weights and stuff. And I've just noticed such a difference in my dancing. Even my boyfriend, who was a D1 athlete in school, when we first started dating, and he was looking at what I was eating, and I was having such an active lifestyle, he was like, that's insane. Any other athlete would be eating so much more, fueling their body so much more. And it's just, we have this whole perception in dance, I feel of what we should be looking like, but it's not realistic for what we're doing.
Yeah. I remember being told, I think it might have been at Dean actually, don't do push-ups because you don't want boy arm muscles. And I remember that, and I'm just like, that is so wild because like you need upper body like we're both contemporary dancers, so you do your little hip hop. I'm terrible at hip hop, but you're great. But we're both contemporary dancers, and you need upper body for that. Like, at least for like the stuff that we do that's like very floor work heavy, like you can't be weak. And it's all connected. Like, I wish more people would focus on cross training. Like, it doesn't have to be powerlifting. Not everybody needs to be squatting 350 or whatever. I think it's fun, but not everybody needs to be doing that. But like cross training, like lifting weights, strength training is like the best thing I ever did for dance. I honestly think it's one of the reasons why I found the motivation to go back to school because, like I said, I was so unmotivated and like depressed and just like not in a good state after graduating from Dean because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I have this dance degree. Like, what do I do with that type of thing? And I missed a whole last semester where they tell you what you're supposed to do with your life or whatever. I don't know. And I don't know, self-medicating and stuff like that. So when I found the gym, it was like, gives you a reason to get up and get moving. And then you won't kind of want to see how all of that affects your dance. And it just inspires you to like do more stuff. I don't know. I noticed that when I'm having like a bad time in the gym or stuff, I feel just like genuinely less motivated in my life, if that makes sense.
Moral of the story, get into the gym, folks, or find something else and mix things up a little, try something new.
Yeah, I know a lot of people from Dean like to do like, what is it, like Orange Theory or whatever, or any sort of like anything like that that gets your body moving, like especially if you're getting older. Like I'm 27, I'm going to be 30 in 3 years. Like I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Like I can't just be sitting on the couch eating snacks. Like if I want to like make this a career. So get moving, get under some weights. It's fun. If not, like do some Orange Theory, do some yoga, do something that gets your like heart moving. I don't know.
I also feel like too, I've always heard in my dance training that sometimes, like for example, like running is really bad for dancers. But then I look at someone like Shannon Wilkinson who's like killing it, running and dancing, and I'm like, is that true, or are we just not being fully educated on what it means to?
I think there's a really big lapse in like overall just like education of how dancers should be treating their body. I mean, Shannon has always been like really active and like one of the most talented dancers I've seen. And she's always been someone who's been in the gym and running. So like there's a correlation with that. Like all of the girls that I remember at Dean that were in the gym, like working on their bodies and stuff, were the ones that were like technically advanced or just like booking all the shows and stuff because they were taking care of their bodies. And I wish that I was like that when I was there, but I got involved with a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have been in. So hindsight's 2020, I guess.
I just wrote regulation of dance competitions, but I saw your Facebook post.
Yeah, I don't know why it came up. I went on like a phase where I refused to teach at competitive dance studios for a while, and then I recently started back up at 2 competitive dance studios, shout out Stage Lights and Thrive. I love them. They're great. But I was talking with the owner of Thrive, and we were just talking about the inconsistencies in dance competitions and scoring. And I just was like, I feel like there should be some sort of regulation in terms of dance competitions, like judging, scoring, even just like rules and ethical practices. Like there is nothing. There's nothing. Dance competitions can be doing whatever they want. Like I know dance competitions where like a teacher will literally be judging their students. And like, how is that ethical? That's not at all. People are paying for their kids to be put on stage in front of these people and be judged and scored and give feedback, and it's either not worth the money or it's just not constructive. And like you look at things like gymnastics and like what just happened with the whole Larry Nassar thing and stuff like that, and that's with regulation too. And it's just like, I think that the competitive dance industry is such a great industry, and it could be doing a lot, but I feel like there's a lot of harmful practices that are being implemented that would be able to be stopped with like regulation, like especially in terms of like dismantling the whole Eurocentrism of dance competitions and the centering of ballet and scoring and stuff, because like, why are you scoring a hip-hop dance on their ballet technique? I put quotes around ballet technique because we don't even need to get into that. That'll take way more than 6 minutes. But Why are you scoring hip hop dances on ballet technique? There's no ballet technique for hip hop. Why are you scoring tap on ballet technique? Tap doesn't come from ballet. Tap comes from African dance and Irish step dancing. Like, I don't know. It's just very harmful to the dance community as a whole to just let dance competitions do and say whatever they want. And that's coming from a former competition kid that loved competitions. And I do like competitions. I think that they're great. And I'm lucky that the two studios I'm at have a great training environment where the students are more focused on just dancing and they don't care so much about like the trophy of it all. But I've been at studios where that is the main focus and it's so harmful. And the commercialization of dance competitions is just continuing to perpetuate this notion of dangerous practices. So that was like a ramble. It's gonna be my subject. One of my subjects for my PhD is like figuring a way on how to regulate competitions. If you haven't read the book Trash the Trophies, it's by Chasta. I don't know her last name, but it's great. I met her at the NDEO concert. It gives a great perspective to both sides, and I don't think that it takes a side necessarily.
I want time to let you promote yourself, like if you have a website, social media, what you're doing right now, how we can support you.
I'm so bad at trying to promote myself. I don't know. Yeah, right now I'm just kind of working. I'm not sure next year if I'm going to be at TAPA. I'm hoping, but I haven't heard anything yet. But I am booking for the summer for summer intensives and stuff. I haven't really put myself out there that much, but if you want to get in touch with me, you can either DM me on Instagram at Ashlee Rapoza or ashleerapozadance@gmail.com is my email. I try to be responsive, but I have ADHD, so sometimes I forget. So yeah, I'm booking for the summer. I'm not looking for any studios to be added like for school year. I'm already at 4 and I teach full time at Performing Arts High School. But yeah, and then I guess just like look out for my research projects. I'm going to try to do some for my PhD, so I might be sharing some Google Docs like I did before.
Definitely go support Ashlee. She has always been a role model to me, and I really look up to her, and you should too.
That concludes this week's episode of That's Showbiz with your host, Hannah Ranko. Make sure you follow the pod on Instagram. Email us if you have any questions or concerns. And also, please go support Ashlee and her work. Have a great rest of your week. See you next week. Bye.